I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit or your body?
So I've been planning and researching this post for a while. If you want to train like Batman or even just like an athlete, then preventing injury and optimizing recovery is crucial. The harder you push yourself in workouts and the more varied your training, the more critical it is that you balance that out with optimal recovery and healing strategies. Knowing this, I've been employing multiple strategies for many years to try and ensure I do both. But then a week ago I put my back out, and no, it wasn't because Bane broke me over one knee, it was significantly less awesome than that. I bent over at an awkward angle while picking up my 15-month daughter on a walk, and it caused a muscle strain in my lower back. Then I came down with a mega cold, which is why my voice sounds a little bit funny. And no, I don't think it's that mega cold. I thought for a while about not writing this post. After all, I felt like a bit of a hypocrite. But then I realised a few things. Firstly, everyone gets injured from time to time. There is simply no strategy that can promise you will never get hurt or never get ill, and I wouldn't want to claim otherwise. Also, this was the perfect time for me to assess what went wrong, how it could be prevented in future, and how I was going to accelerate my healing and get back to training. I'm learning along with you guys, it's all part of the journey. So I did even more research, and now I'm ready to suggest how Batman might optimise his healing and prevent injuries on the job, and what all we mere mortals could learn from that. One of the ways I've always tried to prevent injury, and one of the tools Batman should certainly employ, is to strengthen the tendons. These are what connect our muscles to our bones, allowing us to exert force through our joints. Unfortunately, they also adapt to strength training and even anabolic hormones much more slowly than muscle does. This is one reason that steroid use can actually lead to more injuries, as the muscles grow much faster than the tendons can keep up. Whereas new lifters can see structural changes within the muscle in as little as 8 days, it takes up to 2 months for similar change to occur in tendons. That makes it important that you spend at least 2 months building up a basic level of strength before you start pushing yourself with serious progressive overload. It's also why Batman might choose to use high volume calisthenics as a method to increase blood supply to both muscle and the tendons. The issue is that connective tissue doesn't have as much blood supply as muscle. Doing 300 press-ups several times a week for a few weeks will actually increase the number of capillaries supplying those muscles and tendons with blood. This can also aid hypertrophy, meaning you respond better to training in future. High volume calisthenics also has the added bonus of improving work capacity, thereby improving efficiency over time to prevent sloppy form being introduced as training goes on. I recommend sticking with simpler, low-stress exercises like push-ups and pull-ups. You can also vary the specific movements you use between workouts in order to minimise the amount of repetition on the joints. Another method I use is training for everything I can. By that I mean not just training in a single plane of movement, but working on things like rotational strength and mobility. Batman should certainly do the same by training with calisthenics, animal movements, sandbags, kettlebells, and more. This is important as some more rigid approaches to training can otherwise actually compound the issues that modern life already introduces. When you sit at a computer all day hunched over, you create tightness in certain muscles like the pecs and the hamstrings, while lengthening and weakening others. The same thing happens if you show preferential treatment to certain body parts. If you only train the big 3 lifts, or worse, the mirror muscles, then you'll build back some strength in areas like the hamstrings, but completely ignore external rotation of the shoulders, rotational strength, etc. Rotational strength is not sexy, but it's crucial for every single sport and certainly in combat. Whether you're grappling or twisting your body to throw a punch, this is the type of strength you need. Likewise, it's the strength you need when moving furniture or when you turn to pass something to someone behind you. As Pat McNamara told Joe Rogan, in the transverse plane lives life-saving and ass-kicking. If you have let your obliques become weak, then sudden movements in this position could result in a tear or an injury. And if you only ever train the attractive muscles on the front of your body and work a desk job, then a shoulder injury is just waiting to happen as you spend your days with a whole lot of tension pulling your body forwards all the time. It has been said that gymnasts are particularly resilient against injury, considering the huge amount of high-impact training they do. I don't know how true that is, as I've also heard specific gymnasts say that they find it unusual not to be in pain, but the point stands that they do incredible things without breaking their backs. How? By training in ways that many conventional strength training methods overlook, or even actively avoid. Chris Summers of Gymnastic Bodies recommends using the Jefferson curl to strengthen the back, for example. This involves actively rounding the spine under load, which can feel extremely unnatural to those of us who have always been taught to keep our backs neutral during most lifts. But the point is that your back has mobility there. It's designed to do that. You can avoid moving that way in the gym, but not in real life, so why not strengthen it? The key is simply to know what you're doing, and I highly recommend practicing with a coach and to start with very light weights. We can also take a look at old-time strongmen for demonstrations of this. They would do seemingly insane things like bending backwards whilst pressing weights. This kind of thing might look bonkers, but the point is that by training at these awkward angles, they become stronger in them. They become ready for anything. But, and this is a big one, you absolutely should not do anything that looks crazy or dangerous without the help of a coach, and using very light weights to start with. While your body may be capable of doing that, it's not currently optimized for it. But if I knew all this, then what went wrong? If I'm used to doing single arm kettlebell clean and presses with my 36 kilogram kettlebell, why did picking up my 13 kilogram daughter with both hands take me down? There are several answers to that question. One of these is the specifics of the movement. I've developed twisting movements and I've developed squatting movements, but in this case, I was walking in one direction, twisting backwards to catch my daughter who wanted to go the other way, all while bending down on uneven terrain. I was bending over rather than squatting because I didn't have much time to react, and that route is covered in potholes. That meant my back was also rounded. I might have done the occasional Jefferson curl and I might have trained my rotational strength, but both at the same time, with a very unusual angle of resistance, moving away from me. First thing in the morning, in the cold, while run down, you get the picture. One option would be to focus on combining movements and on transitioning between movements. A squat, a deadlift, or a bicep curl are all examples of constrained movements. Those are one-dimensional, repetitive movement patterns. In real life, we rarely use constrained movement patterns, but rather need to dynamically adapt to ever-changing demands. So one answer to solve this disparity is to use movement training. Training systems like Animal Flow are all about linking movements together and transitioning through all planes of motion. They also include large amounts of spinal articulation and rotation, and no two workouts are ever the same. Of course, you don't have to follow a predefined training program like Animal Flow in order to get used to using animal movements in your own workouts. Trail running using barefoot shoes can similarly prepare us for uneven terrain and ground. Movnat is built around this kind of philosophy. Another option is to use more hybrid exercises that combine 2 or more movements into a single repetition. I discussed this in my most recent Batman training program. Or we can go one step further with another interesting training protocol called loaded movement training, first described in this form by Michael Dalcourt's VIPR system, VIPR. This type of training revolves around task-oriented movement patterns under load. This kind of training challenges the body in a variety of different ways and can help build that legendary farmer strength that gives manual workers seemingly invincible tendons and a bulletproof mentality. It's fantastic for building up tendon strength and building more resilience, especially in your core. Another factor is mobility. This is an issue I know I had. I've been performing pistol squats on a daily basis, but if you look at my form, I actually have quite a rounded back. This is due to a lack of mobility in my right ankle, which in turn is a hangover from a very old injury, an avulsion fracture caused by an errant rabbit hole. This prevented my knee from moving further forwards, which forced me to round my back to stay upright. Now, rounded back isn't actually a serious crime when there's no load, but doing this daily, mostly likely, caused a little bit of tension on my back prior to the movement. Now we add in everything that I spoke about before and you have a recipe for disaster. This is just one of the reasons that mobility should be emphasised if you want to improve your longevity in training. It's also why assessing your own form and being honest about your own mistakes and limitations is important too. Keep in mind as well that limited mobility can be acute as well as chronic. An injury can cause tension, for example, as can stress. This is why I recommend doing a short diagnostic check before each workout. You can do this during a warm-up or even as part of a body scan meditation, which also helps to strengthen the mind-muscle connection for further reduced injury risk. In short, you check in with each muscle group to see whether it's feeling stiff or painful, or whether it's carrying any tension. From there, you can then try to address those issues with foam rolling or simply decide not to push too hard in that area during a given workout. Ultimately, this is the difference between treating training like your job. If you can't afford to be injured, then you need to be slow and deliberate in your training. You need to train for longevity, not from your ego. That's when training becomes serious, and Batman is always serious. That's it for part 1, guys. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll be discussing recovery. And don't worry about me and my back, I'm already starting to exercise lightly once again, and I've nearly finished this cold despite what my voice might sound like. Hopefully by the next video, I'll be ripe as rain. So thanks a ton for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, then please share it around, like, comment and subscribe. All those things to help me out immensely, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye for now. Oh, and if you like this kind of approach to training that incorporates lots of different methodologies, then you'll probably enjoy my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training. You can find that in the link in the description down below.